I welcome to the national and international delegates. I request everyone in the hall to please stand up for the national anthem. Please side पे please excuse me इनसे कहीं नीचे चले जाओ. Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. This is Tuba Salim, Conference Secretary and Moderator of inaugural session. We shall begin our inaugural ceremony with the name of Allah, and for recitation of Holy Quran, I shall request Dr. Tahir, Hafiz Tahir Sahab, to please come on the stage and recite few verses from Holy Quran.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. In the name of Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, recite in the name of Lord who created all, who created man from clinging substance. Recite, and your Lord is most generous, who taught by pen, who taught man that which he knew not. Sadaqallahu al-Azim.
Jazakillah. On behalf of organizing team of our 5th International Conference on Research and Practices in Education, ICRPE 2020, I welcome to the national and international delegates. And without any delay, I shall request Dr. Afsha Huma, Conference Coordinator, to please share the opening remarks and objectives of this conference.
Thank you so much, Tuba. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. I once again welcome you all to Allama Iqbal Open University, Faculty of Education, at the 5th International Conference on Research and Practices in Education. This is the 5th year, and I first of all like to welcome our chief guest, Mr. Taj Haider, the Member Senate and Chair of the Education Standing Committee in the Senate. I welcome guest of honor, Ms. Wajia Akram, the Parliamentary Secretary for Education. And I welcome one very special person who is sitting right in front of me, Dr. Shahid Siddiqui, Professor Dr. Shahid Siddiqui. इनका बहुत ज़्यादा शुक्रिया अदा करना इसलिए बनता है because he was the person who initiated this conference in this university. So thanks to all these three personalities. We are here today at the 5th conference, and we, alhamdulillah, received more than 360 papers and more than 300 papers are being presented in these 2 days. The major objective of this year's conference was to explore the major theme, that is relevance and quality in education. Whenever we are deciding the theme of our conference, there's a huge debate and discussion among the faculty members, and then we end up having one of the relevant themes, which is the pertinent theme of the year. So we ended up here, and we draw 3 major objectives. First one was to bring together the eminent researchers and practitioners to share their work. Number 2 was to highlight the indicators of relevance and quality in education. And number 3 is to explore the way forward for implementing the improvements suggested by the scholars and practitioners. In the morning today, somebody asked me for the word practitioners. And I always, every year, I explain this, that what we are trying to do at this forum is that the researchers who are doing their research in any educational institution or any other institution should be able to network with the practitioners in different organizations or institutions again. Today, there is going to be a special session after this keynote speech and inaugural session, which is called Best Practices Session. And we are always very proud of that session, because these are the people who are doing best practices in the field of education, not necessarily being a part of government organizations, but also the non-government organizations. So these are overall themes and aims of the conference. I welcome you all. Thank you, Tuba.
Thank you so much, Dr. Afshan Huma, for sharing your views and objectives of this conference. Now I shall request Dr. Nasir Mahmood, who is Conference Chair and Dean Faculty of Education, Allama Iqbal Open University, for the welcome address to the audience.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I'm really pleased to see all friends in this conference coming from various parts of the country. I'm really honored to have you all here. As Dr. Afshan has already talked about the conference objectives, I won't go into that, but it's really indeed a pleasure for us to have Taj Haider Saab with us. He does not need any introduction. Everybody knows him and knows him for all good he has brought to this society. He's quite respected in our community, in education, and otherwise in society. So we're thankful to you, sir, for joining us here, giving us time. Thankful to Ms. Wajiha. She joined us here, and it is again, her image in our community is like someone very friendly and always available whenever it comes to the promotion of education, cause of education. So we're thankful to you, ma'am, as well, for joining us here. Our friends from abroad, our guest speakers, you will shortly be listening to them, their views on this topic of relevance and quality in education. So we are thankful to both of them for joining us from Thailand and Japan. So, and as Afshan mentioned, and very rightly, Dr. Shahid Siddiqui, he's with us today. And in fact, this culture of conferences, this environment of learning in this university, Sir has worked very hard in her tenure as Vice Chancellor here and converted all energies of ours, our faculty members, towards creating a culture of learning in this university. We had, I think, more than 24 conferences when he was Vice Chancellor here, and we're trying to continue the same culture every year. In education faculty, we have 2 regular conferences every year. One is this, in which we are sitting today, and another one on early childhood care and education. And both of these avenues were started when he was our leader in this university. So thank you very much, sir, for being here. I will not talk too much about the theme, but just a short, brief note of myself on it, that how I understand this term and what we can expect from these learned people in coming 2 days, today and tomorrow, the kind of deliberations we expect from them, and then at the end we'll come up with something which we can use as our pathway towards progress in these 2 areas. The two words which we are focusing in this conference are relevance and quality of education. I think it was always very important for all of us to have these things. But right at this point of time, we in our educational institutions, Higher Education Commission, Government of Pakistan, we all, and we society, as a society, we are all thinking about these two words, and we're deliberating on it now more than we did ever before. When it comes to the relevance of education, so we are faced with a number of issues. We have done some progress on them in past, but our progress is not enviable. We all realize that we should have done more than what we did in last 70 years. For example, a nation after more than 70 years of their independence is still struggling with issues of access in education. We are still worried about bringing our children to school, and all of us know that out of almost 54 million children who should have been in our educational institutions, we have almost half of them in schools and rest of them are out of school. So it's about 22.8 million outside the schools and 24 million in school. So this is something which we need to very seriously take up. After even whatever access we have provided, the second thing is the participation rates versus dropout. Whoever comes to school, we are not able to retain them. And it's not particular to the schools only, it carries to the higher education as well. Whoever comes to this field, to the institutions, we reasonably failed to keep them in our educational institutions. So then disparities we are all aware about. Okay? Disparities of gender, marginalized areas within this country. So we were not able to uniformly offer same level of facilities to across the country to the children and youth who wanted to be educated. And similarly, it's a long list of things. With these things, moreover all that, whoever even graduates from our system, we still ask question about the relevance of whatever we are teaching to them. They graduate from our institutions with a purpose that they will make this community or this country a better living place morally, in terms of values, culture of this country. And again, we are of opinion that our graduates, our institutions are not able to teach them how to be contributive as a citizen of this country towards the betterment of the society. And on the other hand, when it comes to the skills we impart in them, again, we have number of graduates and number of jobs available, and it's hard to find a suitable person on these jobs. So the case of unemployment is very differently seen in this country. As I look at it, on one hand, employers are looking for people who are relevant to their jobs they are offering, and graduates, they are in abundance and they are looking for jobs which is suitable with the qualification they have. So on both ends, it means that there is a mismatch. There is a gap in whatever we are teaching in our educational institutions, whatever skills we are imparting in them, and what is required in the job market. So we need to think about it, the kind of education, the kind of skills we are imparting in our students, are they relevant to the need of our society? And then all this is to be thought in terms of our SDG goals, which now talk about quality of education. I'm not sure that in absence of all these things I've just pointed out, how well we can address this issue of quality. But whatever we are doing, we need to work out that we have committed to the international community that we will ensure quality education to all of them by 2030. So we need to deliberate on it, and I hope our participants from all across the country in the sessions in coming 2 days will enlighten us on the ways in which we can address these issues. So I wish you a very pleasant stay in Islamabad and a very fruitful 2 days of the conference here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your views and addressing the audience. I feel myself honored now to welcome and to invite Ms. Wajiha Akram, Member Parliament, to address the participants of the conference.
السلام علیکم. میں یہاں پہ آ کے جب بھی یونیورسٹی کے پروفیسرز ہیں اور ایسے لوگ جنہوں نے ایجوکیشن میں ایک زندگی اپنی دی ہے اور اس کاز کے لیے اپنا سب کچھ قربان کیا ہے, تو ایک کم مائیگی کا احساس ہوتا ہے, اور ایسے لگتا ہے کہ کہاں میں شکر گڑھ کے گاؤں سے اٹھ کے کہاں آپ کے پاس آ کے یہاں کھڑی ہوں, آئی ایم شیئرنگ اسپیس ود یو. دیٹس سچ این ایبسولوٹ آنر. اور میں آپ سب کی شکر گزار ہوں کہ آپ نے مجھے یہاں پہ بلایا. مجھے بہت سیکھنے کا موقع ملا ہے اس عرصے کے اندر. ایجوکیشن منسٹری میں آ کے سب سے پہلے تو یہ پتہ چلا کہ پاکستانی ہم لوگ بہت اچھے, بہت خوبصورت لوگ ہیں. جب بھی میرے پاس کوئی آفس میں اگر کوئی آیا ہے تو یہی سب لے کر آئے ہیں کہ ہم کچھ کرنا چاہتے ہیں پاکستان کے لیے. اٹس پیئنگ بیک ٹائم. آپ ہمیں راستہ بتائیں, آپ بتائیں کہ ہم کیسے کچھ کنٹریبیوٹ کر سکتے ہیں اس ملک کے لیے, ایجوکیشن کے لیے. تو یہ دیکھ کے ہی دل بڑا ہو جاتا تھا اور ایک حوصلہ بڑھتا تھا کہ ہاں ہم سب نے مل کر جو بھی ایشوز ہیں, جو بھی پرابلمز ہیں, وہ ہم سب کے ہیں. وہ کسی ایک منسٹری کے, کسی ایک شخص کے, کسی ایک ادارے کے نہیں ہیں. اس کے لیے ہم سب نے مل کر کام کرنا ہے. تو جب آئے تو سب سے پہلا ایشو یہی تھا کہ جو پرابلمز ہیں منسٹری میں, وہ سب سے پہلے تو یہ تھا کہ جی وہ ایک ماحول ہی نہیں تھا کام کرنے والا. 9 to 5 آئے, جاب کی, نوکری کی, فائلیں ادھر سے ادھر, دیٹس اٹ. تو وہ جو ایک اسپرٹ ہوتی ہے نا کہ کوئی تبدیلی لے کے آنی ہے, کچھ کرنا ہے اور ڈلیور کرنا ہے, اور وہ یہ نوکری والی ٹیمپرامنٹ کے ساتھ نہیں آ سکتا. وہ صرف اس وقت آ سکتا ہے کہ جب آپ یہ سمجھیں کہ یہ ایک پیشن ہے, ایک کمٹمنٹ ہے, اور اس قوم کو آپ نے آگے لے کے چلنا ہے. سب سے بڑا مسئلہ اس وقت تھا یہ کہ جو لنکیج ہے اور جو ایک ہم پڑھا رہے ہیں اس کا جاب مارکیٹ کے ساتھ, انڈسٹری کے ساتھ, پریکٹیکل زندگی کے ساتھ کہیں نظر نہیں آتا تھا. تو اس گیپ کو برج کرنے کے لیے آج جو یہ ایفرٹ آپ لوگ کر رہے ہیں یہ انتہائی قابل تحسین ہے. اور مجھے امید ہے کہ جو ریسرچ پیپرز اب آئیں گے, جو آپ لوگوں نے کام کیا ہے, اس کو ہم کہیں امپلیمنٹ بھی کر سکیں گے, اس کا ہم کہیں فائدہ بھی اٹھا سکیں گے. کیونکہ یہ بہت انکریجنگ ہے ہماری یوتھ کے لیے, ہم سب کے لیے, کہ ان کو یہ پرووائڈ کیا گیا پلیٹ فارم کہ وہ اس پہ ریسرچ کریں. وہ ڈفرینٹ ایشوز جو ہمارے لوکل ایشوز ہیں, ایک یونیورسٹی جس ایریا کے اندر ہے اس سے ارد گرد جتنے قریب علاقے ہیں, اس میں جو انڈسٹری ہے, اس کے جو سوشل ایشوز ہیں, اس کے جو بھی مسائل ہیں, اس کے اوپر وہ ریسرچ کریں اور وہ پھر وہ لے کر آئیں, اور پھر ہمیں یہ موقع ملے کہ ہم اس کے اوپر کوئی پالیسی بنا سکیں اور اس کو آگے لے کے جا سکیں. تو اس سب کا فائدہ ہے. ابھی تک یہی ہو رہا تھا کہ ہم اپنی نیشنل اسمبلی میں بھی دیکھیں تو ایسی پالیسیز, ایسے بلز, ایسا کچھ وہاں خوبصورت انداز میں پڑا ہوا ہے کہ وہ پڑھا رہے تو اس کا کوئی فائدہ نہیں, اس کو صرف دیمک کھا رہی ہے. جتنی ہماری لائبریریز ہیں وہ بھری پڑی ہیں ایسے ریسرچ پیپر سے, لیکن ہم امید کرتے ہیں کہ ان سب کا ہم فائدہ اٹھا سکیں گے, اس کو ہم امپلیمنٹ کر سکیں گے, اس میں سے ہم کچھ لے کر آگے ہم اپنی نئی نسل کے لیے کچھ کر سکیں گے. اس کے بعد جو بھی میرے بھائی نے بات کی آؤٹ آف اسکول چلڈرن کی, تو آپ یہ دیکھیں کہ کتنی یہ ایک زیادتی تھی. اور ابھی بھی جیسے ہمارا جو ایک سوشل سسٹم ہے اس کے اندر کہ لیول پلینگ ایک جو ہے وہ گراؤنڈ تو کسی کو دی نہیں گئی, اور اس میں ہم سب نے اب مل کے یہ کوشش کرنی ہے کہ ہمارے جو بچے ہیں وہ چاہے کسی ہماری میڈ کے, ڈرائیور کے, وہ ہماری ذمہ داری ہیں. اگر ہمارا بچہ اسکول جا رہا ہے اور ہم یہ دیکھ رہے ہیں کہ ایک میڈ کا بچہ آ کے پائپ سے جو ہے وہ باہر گراج صاف کر رہا ہے اور گاڑیاں صاف کر رہا ہے, تو یہ اس کے لیے ہم ذمہ دار ہیں, یہ ہماری ذمہ داری ہے. تو جب تک ہم یہ ذمہ داری سب لوگ مل کر یہ فیل نہیں کریں گے, ایک اونرشپ نہیں لیں گے, تب تک ہم یہ نہیں سوچ سکتے کہ ہم بیٹھ کر ہم صرف باتیں کریں اور ایک معاشرے کے اندر ایک جو تبدیلی ہے وہ بھی آ جائے اور ہم سب کو ایک ایکول مواقع وہ بھی فراہم کر سکیں. میں آپ سب کی بہت شکر گزار ہوں کہ آپ نے یہ موقع دیا مجھے, اور انشاءاللہ منسٹری میں جہاں بھی میرے لیے تو یہی ہے کہ میں جہاں تک ہو سکے, جہاں تک بھی پاسبل ہو, جہاں بھی آپ لوگوں کو ضرورت ہو, میں آپ کے لیے آواز بن کے ہمیشہ وہاں پہ کھڑی ہوں. اور آپ سب کا بہت بہت شکریہ دوبارہ. تاج حیدر صاحب یہاں پہ بیٹھے ہیں, اور میرے لیے ایک بہت بڑی ایک اعزاز کی بات تھی کہ ان کے ساتھ والی چیئر پہ میں بیٹھی ہوں, اور ایسے لوگ جن کی زندگی ایک کاز کے لیے گزری ہے. میں بہت چھوٹی تھی, بچپن میں میرا ایک ان سے انٹریکشن ہوا تھا, میرے والد صاحب, اور یہ एक ही स्कूल ऑफ थॉट से और एक ही एक जद्दोजहद करते हुए, लेकिन वो कहीं बहुत पीछे रह गए और वो मायूस हो गए शायद, और इस सिस्टम से आगे फ़ाइट करने के लिए उनकी हिम्मत जवाब दे गई। किले में जेल काटी उन्होंने, उसके बाद घर बैठ गए रिटायर होके। लेकिन आज बहुत अरसे के बाद इनको देखा तो बहुत सारी यादें भी ताज़ा हो गई, और मैं इनके लिए बहुत दुआएं हैं मेरी, और मेरे लिए इससे बड़े एजाज़ की बात कोई नहीं है। आप सबका बहुत शुक्रिया। जज़ाकल्लाह।
Thank you so much, madam, for sparing your time and coming to our conference. Now I shall request to our chief guest, and it is a great pleasure for me to inviting him, Mr. Taj Haider, Senate member, Government of Pakistan. Please, sir, come up here and share your few words with us.
Professor Nasir Mahmood, Madam Wajiha Akram, worthy guests, organizers of this international conference, ladies and gentlemen, sometimes I feel very small when I sit in the company of such high-level educationists and teachers. I belong to a family of educators and teachers, but unfortunately I'm the only dropout in the family. The children, and we are 8 brothers and sisters, and there are 27 in the next generation. 14 of them have done their PhDs and are teaching from Melbourne University, Sydney University, to McGill University. But the point is, what are our priorities? Is education a priority or not? And when our party, Pakistan People's Party, I'm a founder member of that party, was being formed, and I was about 22 or 23 years old. And at that age, as all of us know, one is very wise. When they reach my age, which is 77, then they realize that there's so much more to learn, and they know very little. So I was sitting down with Shahid Bhutto, and I was trying to give him many schemes. And then he pointed out that I was not talking on education. And he said, let's teach our children, and they shall plan and implement much better than what we can do. And then he said it takes only 15 years to do that, to educate the entire nation. But of course, as I said, it's a matter of priorities, whether we give education priority or not. And ladies and gentlemen, let me point out that perhaps it's not a profession. It has to be a movement. It has to come from within. And one must keep in mind services that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan has rendered to us, which some educationists in Sindh have rendered to us. That in a society which of course was very literate in terms of traditional and outdated knowledge, they introduced modern knowledge. And they set up institutions that within 70 years or 80 years produced a generation that made the creation of this country possible. Well, the question is, do we have that kind of dedication? Are we ready to turn education from a profession to a movement, a social movement, in which every citizen of the country is mobilized, and every citizen of the country has to participate. Once again, I must say that governments have a much bigger responsibility. And it was a sad moment when we saw that maybe there were financial constraints, but the budgets of the universities were cut down by almost half. And this is very serious. It shows that we have reduced our priorities. In Sindh, we wanted to do away with tuition fees in professional colleges, like we have done in the health sector, that every treatment, the heart, the kidney, or liver transplant is free of cost. We wanted education to be free of cost. Medical and engineering and university education to be free of cost, and we felt that this could make a big difference. But then, of course, once again, there were financial constraints. But once again, I insist, and I told the Chief Minister that, well, you have to reset your priorities. Financial constraints are not an excuse for closing the doors of education on talented people who can contribute to the nation. But this is how things are. This is a problem perhaps which is common to many developing countries. And those developing countries have to set their priorities, have to reset their priorities once again. I think the relevance is local, regional, and global. We have to benefit from the experience of others. And Professor Nasir Mahmood, I congratulate you that this is the fifth international conference. And we are taking this opportunity again and again to benefit from the wisdom of others. We are an underdeveloped country, and we may have to learn from others for another 1,000 years. But what's wrong with learning? And I'm very happy that this year there are professors, worthy professors, and maybe the year before also, from the Eastern countries, Japan and other countries. And we are no longer depending on Western countries. Professor Nasir Mahmood, you have referred to the job market. Perhaps, yes, of course there is a connection, but perhaps the aim of education is higher than finding jobs. We have to transform the society. And if we fail to transform the society through our education, then I think we have failed in our basic task. We have to teach people to think critically, to analyze, to find solutions. So what if they can't find a big job? I mean, when Pakistan was created, there were many in the bureaucracy who thought that if education spreads, then they will demand jobs. And since there are no jobs, then why educate these people? But then they did not realize that even if a worker, an ordinary worker, is highly educated, the quality of his work will improve, certainly, and the quality of the society will improve as a whole. So these are questions that have to be pondered, and we have to see what kind of relationships we have to maintain. And sir, if there is an economic meltdown, if there is an economic slowdown, which has been persistent for quite a few years, shall we close our universities? No, we won't. What our universities have been doing is that they have been supplying educated manpower to the Western countries. We spend all the resources, we make all the effort, but these are the developed countries who benefit. And the direction of making a career abroad perhaps is not helping our country so much as it should, with the kind of effort and the kind of resources that we are allocating to this field. All these things have to be thought. Very recently, students from Wuhan who are stuck in Wuhan, they started contacting me. And through them, I came to know that there are thousands of Pakistani students studying in China. There are around 20,000. A great change will take place when these students come back, because it's a completely new society, a very highly disciplined society, knowledge-oriented society. And I've seen Chinese workers, and I've worked with them in the desert of Thar, and I've seen the kind of effort that they make, how punctual they are, how dedicated they are. Mr. Vice Chancellor, we dug a coal mine, and with the help of Chinese workers, we completed the project 5 months before schedule, and we saved about $170 million in that project because we cut down on the time. There recently has been a financial closure of many other projects in Thar. Our coal production, and once again, let me submit to you, sir, it's because the interest that our Chinese friends are taking in Thar. They are taking our engineers to China, they are training them, and when they come back, they are different people. What happens in 6 months or 8 months, what kind of education is given, but the difference in their quality is very, very obvious. The financial closure that has taken place with the help of China, it's $1.3 billion. And once the financial closure is achieved, all the hindrances are removed, and perhaps the projects that are underway can be completed in the next 2 years or so. Coal production will go up from 3.8 million tons per year to 15.4 million tons per year in the next 2 years. Our electricity generation will go up from 660 megawatts, which is at present, to 2,640 megawatts. A great breakthrough that Chinese knowledge is giving to us is that we are converting coal into gas. And from gas, we will be making fertilizers. A small plot, 600 meters by 900 meters, has been reserved in Block 6, which will produce urea for the next 30 years that will meet the national requirement. So that's the kind of knowledge breakthrough that we are making. The breakthrough in biosaline agriculture that we are making in desert of Sindh, it has all come from China. So I would sincerely propose that we must start looking east. And we must have a close collaboration with the eastern countries in the field of education. And I'm happy to know that quite a few universities are now teaching the Chinese language. Because, let me be very frank, our relations with the West have been of an exploitative nature. And, that they tell us what they want to, what is in their benefit, and they don't tell us what is not. We must have our own, we must mobilize our own natural resources. We must educate our own manpower, human resources. And then we must experience, we must experiment. Education, ladies and gentlemen, I think is not a product, it's a process. It's an experience, it's not a problem. So let the horizons of knowledge expand as far as they can. Let's break new frontiers. So what if we don't get jobs? The new brains, the new knowledge shall create a new world. The breakthrough that our girls have made in education is very, very significant. That is sure to bring great social challenges. Our women very shortly would be playing a very important role in building the country and building our society. And it shall be a great country. I went to the Karachi University with another colleague of mine, and he said they've been demanding a women's university. Well, Karachi University is now a women's university if there are 80% girl students. And that is happening with in Balochistan University. In every university, a great change is taking place. So I only wish that we take up the job seriously, our priorities are right, our resources are made available, that are the needed resources, and Professor Nasir Mahmood, you and your colleagues and our friends who have been so kind to grace this conference, who have come from such long distances to share knowledge, to look at our problems, and to guide us. I think it's a great effort for which Allama Iqbal Open University deserves congratulations, not only mine, but of all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, it is a great pleasure for me to invite a very pleasant personality here, and I shall request and invite Professor Dr. Shahid Siddiqui Sahab to please come up on the stage and present a shield and conference shield and a bouquet to Ms. Wajiha Akram. Keynote speeches, and for moderation of keynote speeches, I would like to request Ms. Sidra Rizwan, Dr. Sidra Rizwan. She is faculty member at Allama Iqbal Open University.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I am moderator for the keynote speeches session, and the chair is Dr. Professor Nasir Mahmood. Our first keynote speaker is Kichi Oyasi. He is specially appointed professor of Tokyo Healthcare University and Director Education Cooperation Department of Asia Pacific Cultural Center for UNESCO in Tokyo, Japan. Prior to assuming his current position in July 2018, he was a professor of Center for Global Partnership and Education, Okayama University, from 2016 to 2018, and currently holds a post of visiting research fellow. He worked with UNESCO Bangkok from 1996 to 2008 and Dhaka from 2008 to 2016 as a program specialist for promoting education for all and education for sustainable development. In particular, he coordinated community learning center networks in Asia and the Pacific through policy forums, capacity development workshops, and training materials development. His main research areas are literacy, non-formal education, lifelong learning, and sustainable community development. He received his PhD in human science from Osaka University. His today's talk is about education for sustainable development, particularly role of community-based learning. I welcome you, sir, please.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody can see the screen. Yeah? Well, first of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to the organizer, this AIOU, and also the conference key players and to organize this. According to the theme, the overall theme of the conference, I'm going to present some research projects on community-based learning for sustainable development and some thoughts and also findings, and also I'd like to have some discussions. First of all, I'd like to let us think what communities do we belong. I think all of us belong to community, probably your village or your area you stay, and this kind of forum is also a community. And we also have outside of the office and also outside of our geographical community, we have a group of people who have common interests and also some needs and objectives and so on. And in the community, we have certain platform and activities, and also we have members and the people relevant. So when we talk about these communities, from the previous speakers mentioned about globalizations and linkages, there used to be some kind of hierarchy when we have relationship or dialogues with other countries, for example. But now we are connected in a way, globalization in a good sense, and also some problems happens, like disease and so on. But basically we interdepend, and also particularly through information and communications tools. And another important feature, particularly in Japan, we have more individual lifestyles, particularly with this tool, and everybody have its own community with this tool beyond our own families and so on. So basically this, when we talk about the community, it's sometimes a bit complicated. And today, community development, I'm going to talk about the context of geographical mainly community, how we can develop our society more sustainable. And usually we have certain visions, like this conference, we look at this SDG Goal 4, and also SDG Goal 4 relevant to other goals, and set the objectives and activities and the people involved in under certain platform. So this is how we look at the things in general. And now let's look at what kind of process we have. Traditionally, when we talk about the process of development, one of the approaches is problem-solving type of approach. So we find certain problems and issues, and then analyze the causes, root causes, and implications. And then develop this kind of a management cycle from the issues analyzed, and then develop the plan, implement, assess. So this is one approach we used to have. And then another approach is a collective impact type of approach. It's a more long-term commitment, and with common agenda, shared measurement, and reinforcing activities mutually, and good communication. And most importantly, there is a backbone support organization to coordinate different kind of activities and programs. So this is often called the backcasting approach, that we develop the vision first and then backcast to the present. So this is another process many organizations these days try to introduce. And we initiated inter-country action research on this issue. What kind of process is good for the community development, particularly for sustainable community? And the issues we'd like to address as a statement is the first one, problem-solving approaches. We tend to focus on certain specific issues, and it's sometimes difficult to link with other issues with a holistic view. On the other hand, this collective impact approaches, we need to have a good backbone support organization. And if you look at some cases in some other countries, that requires a lot of substantial resources. And that is not very easy to do. And backcasting is good to introduce, but it's not always easy to develop the good vision for that. And the collaboration is not always effective. We work together, but productivity is questioned. So when we emphasize the importance of participation and collaboration, as you can see, participation is not dichotomy, it's a continuous process, and the collaboration is taking place as part of the participation process. And different types of collaboration we have seen, networking, but sometimes tend to focus on information sharing. And the multi-stakeholders, we may have a different measures sometimes. And also PPP. Because of this, private sector has a certain focus, so it's sometimes end up with some very narrow targets to come up with some outcomes. So another issue is collaboration. It's good we work together as a group. At the same time, we have this kind of risk of social loafing. That means if we work together, our productivity is getting decline. And we call it Ringelmann effect. We have this potential productivity, but actual productivity. There are two causes. One is motivation factor, because some people work very hard, motivated, interested, but some are not. We think that, okay, those people work very hard, so I can take it a little bit easy. Another thing is that there may be some conflict of ideas, and also even dispute among the members. So we stop working together and lose productivity. So we have to be careful how we can work together to develop a better productivity. So we organized this inter-country research program that, what is the context to enable the develop the common vision, commonality. And then what kind of activities can be carried out and how we can promote the collaboration. And then what is the learning in this process? So we have some studies, and since this is action research, so not only by the researchers, practitioners look at their own practice and also reviews, and then think about the changes of the future action. So this kind of a cycle of action research was introduced, and then we wrote a case study in different countries. So these are the countries we work together for this research project. So let me introduce just two cases. One is from the Philippines, focusing on disaster risk reduction in Samar province in the eastern part of Philippines, one of the islands, and with fishery, agriculture, tourism. But this, as you may know, Philippines has faced a lot of natural disasters like typhoon and heavy rain and flooding. So this organization, PILCD, organized a research project, how we can work together in the community for sustaining the society. So the focus is how we can manage the disaster situation, and particularly how these vulnerable people with disabilities, can be part of the process, and learning process and also action process. So enabling context is, there should be some awareness about the disaster risk reduction, and some people in the society in a vulnerable position. So this should be understood by all the community members, not by the few project managers and so on. So this kind of mapping informed all the stakeholders about this. What is the issue of our entire community? And for the activities, this donors and the government and practitioners, they sit together and discuss from the beginning about the planning. One of the tendency of practitioners is we have these experiences. Why don't donor and the government buy our experiences or expertise? But attitude of donors and government say that we didn't know about this initiative. So from the planning stage, we should have a common platform to discuss and shared responsibilities. And one of the features of this Philippine project is develop the trust and not MOU. So here they develop the trust among the people and stakeholders, not trust the document. So we tend to see that, oh, here is evidence that this is put in the black and white. So this is the evidence we should work together. But important thing is we made a good human relationship and trust. So that is a finding. So then work together for the community. And learning is, when we talk about the education, educating people and also capacity building, we tend to look at those people who are in the community and recipient. But we also need to train the providers, policymakers. They also need to understand what is the social issues and what kind of bottlenecks in the community, and use some tangible things so that it can be more convincing and visible. And another important thing is people with disabilities, they are not just a recipient. They also should be part of the process of developing the community programs. For example, they can be part of the data management in this project. So disaster issue is the priority. If we find some certain prioritized issues, but it should be linked with the broader issues of environment and also livelihood when we face the disaster situation. So this kind of, we have entry point and then expand the issue. If we can look at the diagram, this PILCD is NGO, that's coordination body, and ASB is a German donor. So they consulted with LGU, this local government unit, and CSO, civil society organizations, and then they work together for programming of disaster and other issues, including this people with disabilities. So this kind of initiatives in the community, under this project, it was implemented. Let me move on to the case of Japan. As you may know, our country context is an aging society. We have more than 20% of the population over 65, and it's getting more and more. So how we can meet the challenge? Because some rural areas, people migrate to the urban areas. So we lose the villages. So that is the situation, how we can maintain the community and also life minimum there. So education and Japan, in a way, it's a silo system. Each silo is well established, but sometimes there is a lack of linkages. But good thing is that each community has a learning center, and it's linked with each district learning centers. So it's the situation of one province in Japan. So how we can coordinate different silo type of approach to the comprehensive community development program. That was the challenge of this program. And we have politicians, mayors elected regularly. So if all the information, fact and figures are shown of what's the implication of the aging societies, what we should do. People vaguely know what is the problem. This aging society is coming to us. But without concrete facts and figures, it's sometimes difficult to understand what kind of policies will be applicable and also effective. So with this, all the information, and the policymakers proposed their own policies and plans, so that was easier for the people to elect the directions. So under this project, this different education and welfare administrative services try to get together. Government made the mechanisms to work together. And Learning Center is the place for the frank and continuous regular dialogues. And each learning center developed the action plans and implement it according to the local needs. So organize this kind of sharing forum. And also university students. I think many of you work with the university. University students have a lot of potentials and opportunities to work with the community. They are new to the social issues, so their viewpoint is very useful to the community people. So here there is a forum to introduce the community treasures. We tend to look at outside, but treasures is within. So let the community people explore what kind of treasures we have. So this is this kind of activities, with the help of the outsiders, it can be done. So you can see the yellow one as a central government, and ivory one is government, local government system. They keep independent functions, but work with a community, this white one. So this kind of relationship, loose linkages, collaboration mechanisms, keeping the independence and working with universities and NPOs and so on. So this kind of models worked well. And another thing is to involve the community people. Here we emphasized the importance of life and work balance, plus they should be the member of the community. So through the discussions and also actual programs, we promoted this kind of community development through good collaboration of different stakeholders. So let me quickly introduce other cases. The Bangladesh school library is not available in many secondary schools. So they set up the library, school library, to promote the literate environment, and students comes and then study, and then their parents and community people join. So we have some entry point and then expand it to the community development work, from the children's reading to the skill development programs. And in India, this probably this WASH project is known to many people, and students learn health. And the important thing is that it practiced in a school. It's not just a knowledge, but practiced in school and also at home. So this kind of activities are carried out in these two countries under this project. So what we found from this project is we need to have certain fact and figures. We informally know what is the problem in our society or in our community, but it should be visible and available to everybody for developing the supportive environment. And for the activities, it's difficult to develop a new framework or new platform or new structure. We should start with something existing, and then keeping their functions, and accountability is very important. Because if we don't have the respective accountabilities, then we are not sure that who has what kind of responsibilities. And important things, again, all the programs we found that the consultation for collaboration should start from the beginning, and we need to have good leaders or coordinators to facilitate the program. And for the learning, I think teachers or facilitators do not just give the information or transmit the knowledge, but we should use the people's wisdom, experiences, and knowledge. There are a lot of treasures in the community. And important thing is we should link with knowledge, skills, and also practice and reflections. So giving the knowledge is important, but it has to be practiced and also reflected. And capacity building is both sides, community people and also service providers. So when we talk about the leaders, we found that the leaders is important, and some leaders emerged from the, for example, some disaster situations, but sometimes some leaders are elected and appointed. And we have various leaders, as you know, but in our study, this trust building type of leaders are very good in coordinating the programs. And leaders, they should have leadership that is visioning and motivating people. And also, leaders need to have some management skills to organize, and sometimes we have to control the people. So we need to have this balanced competencies leaders needed. And so leaders can influence people by force, but at the same time, they can show the role models to people so that people follow. And another important thing is that we have to be careful about the relationship. Leader is not just one-way communication to the followers, but followers also recognize and also respond, and the leaders should listen to change the directions. So this is how the dynamics we found from our study. And last few slides, I just would like to share my views about SDGs. SDGs started 2015, and our goal is 2030. And we have some overall goals and objectives and guidelines, implementation, assessment. So this is a kind of straight way of achieving SDGs, different goals. But my point is education for sustainability, role of education and educators. I think we go back and forth. It may not be the straight. We should explore by ourselves this local context and practice and try and error. And we also need the dialogues, these leaders and also followers and teachers and students and so on, and critiques and reflections. So this kind of complex way, it may take time, but it would be more effective and relevant and with better quality, in my opinion. And so very often, last 5 years, I would say, from the international version, we developed the national versions and district versions and the community versions. So this kind of way, is typical process of transmitting SDGs, idea of SDGs. So a lot of academics is a translation of the international framework to the local context. And the adaptation or contextualization we often talk. But what I propose is we should have different types of SDGs initiative. So that according to the local context and resources. And it can go to the district level types and also the national types. So we should have some Islamabad type of SDGs or sustainable development approaches and also Pakistani level types of approach. The Japanese, we also should have this kind of approach, and we don't have to necessarily follow the Western or international type of approaches. So context-specific emergence, and also that needs to accommodate the different kind of views and opinions. So this process, again, more complex compared with the adaptation process, but it will be more relevant and with a better quality, I believe. So academics should play the role to consolidate and also put it in the theories. So this is how I look at the process of this SDGs and role of education. So having said that, in my opinion, we don't have to necessarily always follow what UN or international organization says. So my last slide is we may think about what is additional goal we need in Pakistan or in your community or in your university. Okay, thank you very much.
Our second keynote speaker is Ms. Punramal Shutrich. She is a Foreign Relations Officer practitioner level. She did her master's in English from Naresuan University, Thailand in 2016. Ms. Punramal has worked in Phuket Provincial Office of Non-Formal and Informal Education as educator practitioner level, where she analyzed the policy, made the action plans, controlled the budget, and evaluated the performance. She is currently serving in the Office of the Non-Formal and Informal Education as Foreign Relations Officers practitioner level, where she cooperates with international organizations in academic and budgetary areas to promote and support the development of non-formal and informal education and lifelong learning activities. Ms. Punramal will talk about literacy and non-formal education. Please, Ms., please come.
Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to you all. On behalf of the Office of the Non-Formal and Informal Education, or ONI in short, Ministry of Education, Thailand, may I take this opportunity to thank you for your kind invitation and excellent organized conference. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Punramal Suthirit. I am a Foreign Relations Officer, practitioner level at ONI. It is my great pleasure to be here as a keynote speaker on behalf of my Secretary General of ONI. My talk today will focus on literacy and non-formal education. ONI plays an important role in literacy and non-formal education in Thailand for a long time ago. The literacy rate in Thailand is rather high, with 94.1% as of the year 2018, taken from World Bank. Most of illiterates are people in remote rural areas, still people as the labor force from various countries in Asia, which the Thai government still allocates budget for their literacy promotion. My talk today is divided into 3 parts, which are a brief background of my organization, literacy, and non-formal education for sustainable development in Asia-Pacific region and Thailand, respectively. First, I will start with a brief background of ONI. The Office of the Non-Formal and Informal Education, or ONI, is an organization that offers educational opportunities to the out-of-school people and enables all Thai people to have the equal rights and opportunities, especially the disadvantaged groups, to receive basic education. Therefore, the government had officially promulgated on 4th March 2008 the Promotion of Non-Formal and Informal Education Act, BE 2551. It aims to encourage Thai people to get lifelong learning throughout their lifetime and to help people, especially the groups who lack educational opportunity, such as street children, inmates, workforce, the disabled, conscripts, farmers, the elderly, Thai hill tribes, slum dwellers, local leaders, Thai Muslim, religious practitioners, Thai population living abroad, compulsory education graduates who cannot further their study, and out-of-school age children to get quality education equal to others. In order to create educational opportunities for those people, ONI provides a number of services and activities in the form of non-formal education such as literacy, basic non-formal education, continuing education, comprising education for life skill development, education for vocational skill development, and education for social and community development, and in the form of informal education such as public libraries, community bookhouse, science centers for education, educational radio and television programs, and also we provide lifelong learning activities. The next topic is literacy. In the past or in the illiterate era, our governments had to equip their citizens with literacy so that the government could easily communicate with them, and certainly it would be of great benefit to themselves in terms of self-learning of various things. However, there is still a key question: if all citizens are literate, the nation will have truly sustainable development or not? Personally, I do not believe it even I accept that the literacy of citizens is so significant and necessary. Since today, the world has three important characteristics as follows. First, the world is very dynamic. Second, the world is very complex. And the last one, the world is interconnected. Literacy, therefore, is not just literacy defined as 3 R's. It is not enough for living happily with success in the 21st century. Therefore, today's literacy should be redefined as really known, deeply known, broadly known, and thoroughly known, or widely known, such as technological literacy, health literacy, mass media literacy, advertisement literacy, etc., for further better analytical or critical thinking, which is very crucial for making the right decision to do things. Furthermore, literacy evaluation must be adjusted or changed to performance-based evaluation to serve the new concept of literacy. The new concept of literacy, I think, will help generate sustainable development of every country in society these days. This leads to the last topic of my talk today, which is non-formal education for sustainable development in Asia-Pacific region and also in Thailand. In this topic, the contents are divided into 4 parts, which aim to highlight the important dimension that we have to focus. I am going to start with first, citizen dimension. Today, national policy or education policy should not focus on only citizens of one's own country, but must focus on the characteristic of a global citizen. Since at Asia-Pacific region level, there are varieties of cultures. Cultural harmony, therefore, must more increase and be closer among communities in Asia-Pacific groups. Each country then must define characteristics of its own country, integrated with characteristics of the global citizen, with crucial indicators as follows. First, ability in English communication as an international language. Second, international personalities, characteristics such as broad-minded, self-respect of cultural varieties, never respect of one's own culture above others, and respect of international law, etc. The last one, occupational capacity, could be more spread to more various fields, towards the Asia-Pacific region, larger than the Asian community. Then we have to rethink how we should be and implement it henceforward. It was recommended that we mobilize thinkers to do ethnographic Delphi future research, studying the future systemically, namely possible trends, both positive and negative desires, as well as the possible future picture, through seeing the whole globe. How can we link education to Asia Pacific? Transnational education obviously will happen. If we do not see the key points, education for sustainable development cannot happen. The second dimension is education provision. Transnational education at all levels must take place. It must be provided to various groups of foreigners from different countries entering into Thailand, especially transnational labor force through G2G cooperation and collaboration. The next dimension is the dimension of education provision model. Teaching and learning model should be redesigned in terms of interdisciplinary, which means each side must work together in line with a living-based approach. There must be the use of knowledge in terms of multidisciplinary. Thus, the learners of which must be generalists who really know, deeply know, and rarely know, not knowing only one matter, such as marketing, public relations, psychology, technology. Fourth, the dimension of education itself. Education itself must be sustainable education. That means education must make the learners thoroughly know or widely know, which is called literacy education. Sustainable education must be education that makes the learner be the knowledge hunger, so that they will have the habit of learning and seeking knowledge continuously throughout their whole lives. Learning must be both multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary, based on the real life, authentic situation, and actual ways of life. Teachers or teaching and learning process providers have to focus on the role of learning facilitator, knowledge manager, co-learner, mentor, or coach, by decreasing the role of instructor or teacher. Additionally, the learning model should be a small group of interested learners in terms of the key issue around themselves. Therefore, the importance of the classroom model will decrease. The product of this learning model is self-directed learners and innovators. I hope that my presentation will be interest of value. Thank you very much for your kind attention. สวัสดีค่ะ
Nasir Mahmood to please come and conclude the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, again, I would like to thank our guest speakers from Japan and Thailand, Professor Kichi and Ms. Pandramal. I'm sure I'm not correctly pronouncing their names, but this is how I can do it. So thank you very much for coming and sharing your experiences from the regions. As Mr. Taj Haider earlier pointed out, that we should look towards East, and that was exactly the intention, to have friends from our region where our socio-economic situations are quite similar to each other in many ways, and we can have better opportunity to learn from these things. And I'm very pleased to see that, both of our speakers have addressed almost all those issues which I can see in the papers we have selected for this conference in coming 3-4 days. In order to improve upon the relevance and quality of education in our country, it's very pertinent to point out that it can only be through the approach of participation, collaboration, ownership of the community, and this is all our speakers have pointed out about, that unless we make all those sit together who are relevant to this thing, we cannot actually develop or plan something which is useful for them. Then importance of collaborations, we talk a lot about it here, collaborations at different levels of society. And then the most important thing we very recently started working on it is like ownership of the community. It's very important that whatever we do, we involve them and they own it as their own. They don't think that it is something which is being imposed upon them from somewhere else. Instead, they should look into it as their own thing. And then creation of common platforms, Professor Kichi pointed out, in all three examples he brought to us, or we can call them cases, they all had one common thing, and that was creation of common platforms. Common platforms where all stakeholders can sit together and actually build something which they feel is good for them, is relevant for them, and that will in turn creates the ownership of that thing. So these are all very important, relevant cases, and I had a lot to learn from all those examples which they have told us about. Another very important issue, we have been talking about it here, is the availability of credible data for any kind of decision. Whenever we dig into any kind of policy or issue which we try to address, and we get, for that we need information which is credible to decide things, we always found ourselves in trouble in terms of trusting the data sets we have in this country. Unless you have a very credible information on what you're talking about, it is very hard to devise any kind of policy which will work for us. So it's not only in education, it is about everything that you read different documents, you approach different sources of data, and you will find different data sets available, which hardly coincide with each other. So we need to seriously think about that our mechanism of collecting that information, which provides us base for any kind of policy, needs to have a trust of the people in this country. A very important point I noted while I was listening to Professor Shah was the concept of accountability. He talked about it in a sentence or so, but this was so interesting that accountability not to punish people, not to penalize them for what they have done wrong. Accountability for the purpose of correction, and then once you find something, there should be a mechanism of support following that. Rather than just punishing people for not doing right, it will not serve our purpose. It will not serve the system as well. So we need to adopt this concept of correction followed by support as the element of accountability. And then for all that, I feel that in these 2 days, we will have the words he pointed out, like reflections, explorations. We need a culture of dialogue. We need to cherish our diversities and address them instead of avoiding them. And so many other things like that. In the 2 days following this session, I hope that we will have sessions where we will see people doing all these things and we all accepting them as. Now, I would like to thank JICA at this place for supporting us in bringing these two very learned people to us with their experiences from their region. Nowadays, you all know that the support universities had from Higher Education Commission in terms of the conference, organizing conferences and so on, for the time being is not as available as it was in the past. So at this point of time, we requested our partners in many other endeavors, not only in this conference. We are working very closely with JICA. We are working very closely with ECDN on several initiatives. So they helped us in bringing these two very nice people to this country and talk to us. Thank you very much, with a wish that you will have useful 2 days here in Islamabad. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for your concluding remarks. I request Dr. Nasir Mahmood to please present the conference souvenir to our first keynote speaker, Mr. Kichi Oyasu. Sir, Professor Tahajjud, please join us. Professor Kichi Oyasu, please come up.
Siddiqui. He is the Dean Social Sciences at Nammal and ex-Vice Chancellor of this university. We are happy that to be here, the person who is a star of the galaxy of education, and hopefully he is going to give us his vision at the end to conclude this particular session. In this session, we are having 7 presentations, and we are allotting 12 minutes time to each of the presentations. So all the participants or presenters are requested to follow the time, please. The first presentation is from Pakistan Innovation Foundation. I would like to request Mr. Atar Osama to come up here, please, for your presentation. And please follow the time. Mr. Atar Osama, please.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you for inviting me to speak here. I would want to talk about a program that we do, which is called the National STEM School, which we've been doing for about 5 years now. I think there are some learnings here, and there are also opportunities for other science and STEM programs to adopt maybe some of the methodologies. So to just give you a little bit of a background, I came back to Pakistan 8 years ago, and started a non-profit called Pakistan Innovation Foundation. What we wanted to do and what we thought we wanted to do was to inspire Pakistanis to become more innovative and solve their own problems. In the beginning, the way we ended up working, we attracted a lot of university students to work with us, to innovate, think out of the box, try to create, solutions for Pakistan's problems. We worked with a number of corporate entities and international, donors to run programs like innovation challenges, hackathons, etc., etc. And very soon we realized that we were working with the wrong people. University students, we felt, did not have the right skills to innovate. They are not taught how to think critically, how to think out of the box. They didn't have time to innovate. Mostly 3rd, 4th year university students are really looking for a job. So the moment they got your first job offer, the innovation went down the drain, and they took on the job offer. This is just the way things are in Pakistan, socially, economically. So I started saying कि I don't want to work with university students. मैंने ecosystem में शोर मचाना शुरू कर दिया कि I don't want to work with university students, they are not ready. So a number of my friends then started saying, okay, so now you understand Pakistan's problems. The problems start in the school. So what are you going to do at the schools? And for the first 3-4 years, I did not have any answer to the question. If you're working with universities and you are a bunch of 5 people, you know which 10 universities to work with. There are 300,000 schools in Pakistan, and there's no way 5 people can do anything with 300,000 schools. So for the first 2-3 years, I sort of struggled to answer this question, what am I doing with schools? But then around 2016, I was sitting with one of my friends who's a physics professor at LUMS, and he said to me, I've run a very interesting undergraduate course this year in which we've asked students to build things in the lab. And if you can find me some good school students, I think I can do this with the school students as well. So we started thinking, and as I thought more and more about it, I said, if I'm going to go out and find some good students, I'm not going to find students only for you. I'm going to find more students. So in 2017, January, we launched the National STEM School. It is a 10-day residential program, initially at LUMS, where we select 35, 40 of the brightest students from across the country and take them to LUMS for 10 days. We also select 5 to 8 professors, some of the best professors that I know in a variety of areas, biology, physics, computer science, robotics, astronomy, aeronautics. And we put these 2 groups together at LUMS for 10 days and we get them to work on real world problems. My idea of creating the STEM school was I wanted to do a program that was at least 2 notches above what is possible in a classroom. So a 13 to 17-year-old goes to LUMS, maybe 6 years ahead of his time, and is exposed to university level research facilities. He works in a lab with a professor, solves a real problem, and is exposed to a whole lot of variety of things that he would not be exposed until maybe he was 17, 18, 19, 20. And something happens. So at the end of these 10 days, usually half of the class comes to me and tells me, when we came here, we knew what we wanted to become, now we don't know anymore.